All right, guys, welcome to another episode of Shedcast, the shed hunting podcast for all things shed hunting. Today, I finally got on Braden, finally able to link up, but great shed hunter, young up and comer, making a name for yourself. So, wanted to get you on, chat, pick your brain about shed hunting, and hear some good stories about your shed season and where you started. Go ahead and introduce yourself, and then we will go from there.
Yeah, like you said, my name is Brayden Ware. I'm the owner of Shed Pursuit, which I've been doing for about the last 4 years and really consistently the last 2 years. Outside of that, I'm still working towards a bachelor's degree, and then I work as a bow tech in my free time.
Awesome. Yeah, it keeps you busy, I'm sure, and then you get to learn a lot and also be around everything in general. What were you doing in school?
So I'm working towards a bachelor's in marketing and management with a minor in entrepreneurship.
Awesome. So that's really just helping you out in general. Every little tidbit you pick up is just kind of working in your favor, it seems like. Huh?
Yeah, between school, work, Shed Pursuit, all of it, it really combines to build on my skills.
That's awesome. So really just wanted to get on here and just kind of find out how old are you?
Just turned 20.
Just turned 20. You're young. So you got a lot of life ahead of you for sure. So that's awesome to see, just young and up and coming. I wanted to just figure out when you started, how you started, and just dive into that for us.
Yeah, so I've hunted pretty much my whole life. I didn't start shed hunting consistently till about 4 years ago. And before that, it was a good 10 years ago that I found my first antler. That was kind of a cool story on that one. I was doing some creek fishing, which was what we did about every weekend growing up, and was not catching any fish. It's a lot worse than my older brother. He was catching them left and right. So I get mad and I go storming off into the woods, wandering around between the trees. And I find this little 4-point whitetail just laying half buried in the dirt. And it was the coolest thing ever. Found that guy and I've still got it in my garage to this day. And that was what kind of sparked it. And then a few years went by and I finally committed to shed hunting, and now I spend every bit of free time I can doing it.
Yeah, it definitely eats up a lot of my free time. That's for sure. That's awesome. You definitely can't get rid of the first shed you pick up. I feel like that's a good one to keep around in the keeper pile for sure.
Oh yeah.
So you were fishing. Have you been around hunting and antlers in general before that?
Oh yeah, my dad
Just
was a big
outdoors.
shed hunt specifically, so he would take me along on the elk hunts, the deer hunts, turkeys, everything you really
Mhm.
could, and enjoyed that a ton. But I don't know what it was. We never shed hunted until that 4 years ago that all of us kind of realized, hey, these are pretty cool, and we can actually spend some time in the spring looking for them, and it can benefit us going into deer season.
Yeah, it's kind of funny how that works out. It's just all of a sudden like, hey, this is kind of fun actually. And you're spending time outdoors, so it's never a bad deal, you know?
Yeah, no, and it gives us something to do. Like I said, we fished a lot in the spring, but now that's been overtaken by sheds. Me, my dad, my brother, all my buddies. That's what we do, and every day off we have, that's what we're going to be doing.
So about 4 years ago, how did you start out? It started kind of like, okay, here's what we're gonna do, and then how many did you pick up that first year, and then leading into the next consecutive years after that?
So that fourth year, 4 years ago, I went out with my dad and brother on a couple trips, and we did really well. So just for the one spot that we went to, there was a lot of bucks and a lot of bulls in there. So we did really well as a group. And then past that, I just wanted more. I'd gotten that itch, and I really wanted to find more, do better, find bigger, obviously. And I spent a lot of time that year hiking new spots. And then going into the following year, it kind of just exploded. I spent every minute I could either scouting or in the woods shed hunting, finding new spots, trying to talk to landowners, hiking all the way around public land. And I guess it was just that one big trip. We started to find some nice brown mule deer and some big elk sheds. So that was what set it off.
It just kind of keeps the fire burning, that's for sure. You were finding elk sheds, mule deer, whitetail, pretty much all of it.
Yep. That first trip was mostly elk and mule deer, but now I'm about a 50-50 split. This year I focused a lot on elk. I found about 50% elk sheds, about 40% whitetail, and then about 10% mule deer.
Yes, yeah, that's a good mix as well. Have you had a little trifecta? Picked up all three in one day at all yet?
I have the one I haven't done is moose, elk, and deer in a day. So
That would be
I've
cool.
had days that I've found moose and deer. I've found days that I've found moose and elk, but never all three.
I've seen people do that here because we have the Coos whitetail, then elk and mule deer to pick all those up in one day would be awesome. I think only so far I've picked up just mule deer and elk, but never three just yet. hopefully that'll happen some point. Just getting in the right places at the right times. Basically, starting out, you started picking up sheds and then you were getting better and better at it. Was there anything in there that you're like, hey, I want to figure out how to do this better? You said you were kind of wanting more. Were you looking, or did you read any articles, or did you watch videos and figure out what's going to work? What's going to help me find more?
Yeah, it was all a research thing to begin with. So in the off season, I was still thinking about sheds. So get your fix of that. Most guys are going to the videos, they're going to articles, anything you can gather information outside of just being in the hills. So just like everybody else, watching the Hush guys, watching Shed Crazy, Rise and Shed, all these guys, seeing the videos in the off season still just keeps you hyped up basically and wanting to find more. And e-scouting was a big one, realizing how many apps are available to learn when you're stuck at home. There's days you can't go out. And when I couldn't go out, that's what I was doing. I was sitting on the computer, sitting on my phone, just trying to find new spots.
I can agree with that one. Spend a lot of time hovering maps and trying to find little pockets here and there and digging back through old data, old shed pins and looking at what looks similar or based on these and roads and these ridges and where I think they may go, where they're going to hold up or something for winters. And every winter seems to be different. I know across the west it seemed like we had a weird winter here this year. Did you notice any of that being kind of a funky factor this year?
I did. It's never predictable. You'd like it to be, but it's not. This year was definitely the case because I spent all winter scouting. There was sitting in the truck behind the spotting scope or watching bulls from afar, find them on the map, all that. I glassed and scouted for a long time, and it really didn't benefit me. Usually it will. Usually that's the idea. You scout them up, then you can find them a couple months later. But we had a couple late storms that kind of scattered everything, and those bulls I had pinpointed were no longer there, and it was right as they were shedding. So that was a big struggle this year.
Same here for us. We had some late season snows and rains, and it just scattered everything out, it seemed like, and made it a little more difficult so far, but we've still got some days to get out. With your shed season, when do you start in the year, and then when do you ever call it quits, or do you then kind of switch over, or do you just shed hunt throughout the year whenever you get a chance?
So most of my season runs from, I'd say, end of February to end of May because I'll get busy with work again through the summer. So obviously, guys are wanting to get their bows tuned up or they're wanting to get into a new one this summer. So I got to get back to that, make a little money. But that's our regular timeline, picking up whitetail through moose, elk, deer, all those guys. And then once the grass starts growing into the end of May, it kind of puts a damper on things.
With moose shed hunting, I haven't had a whole lot of experience with that based out of Arizona, but do you find that to be pretty different? Do they winter a lot higher, or do they focus on some of that marshy type lands?
Moose are interesting, and that's the kicker, I guess, on that timeline. I look for them in January, but they scatter a lot. I've found moose in every elevation band, and I don't know if that's a Montana thing or all the Shiras moose in general. I found them in a lot of elevation bands, but the one thing you can count on is they don't care about the snow. They're not going to follow the snow line like elk are gonna. Moose are going to do what they want to do regardless.
It's good to know. Yeah, that is interesting, and they seem like such awesome sheds to find. They're
No, they
such huge animals too.
Moose are amazing. I actually, this year's been a struggle on moose for me, but my dad picked up a really nice Shiras bull, just one side off of him a couple weeks back.
Really, that's awesome. Brown or
Yep. Oh yeah, fresh brown. It had just melted out from the snow, so we timed it right. Actually, he shed, and then we got a couple big snowfalls. Then it started to melt out, and then we cruised in for our trip. So the timing couldn't have been better.
dang, that's awesome. Yeah, and just that time of year, I absolutely love. Now it's starting to get warmer here in Arizona, so it's like, man, I just like that. Right after our winters are here aren't too harsh, but right after winter, spring, where the weather feels so good when you're out walking around and just looking and seeing what you can pick up. It's just such a good time of the year, that shed season, man. Another thing I wanted to talk to you about was the opener that you went to. I've seen a lot about it, but definitely wanted to hear your take on it, your experience with it, how you planned it, how that even works. I know they've got some sort of, is it a lottery system that they do for getting a spot in line?
Yeah, it's a lottery system for that Jackson opener where you put in online a couple months in advance and then You'll get an email telling you where you get your spot for your vehicle in line, and then you line up the day before, and there's a big caravan going up into there.
They just go through and check everybody like, all right, you're this spot, make sure everybody's in the right spots.
Yep. Yeah, they check IDs, they mark your car, then they'll check you again while you're in there. So they're pretty on top of things.
Wow, that's pretty interesting. How many people can go in a vehicle?
It's kind of a gray area. Honestly, I asked the same question to the guys, and they said if all your seats are occupied, you could have more people in the back. So if you got a pickup truck, you can have people sitting back there. And as long as you're generally safe about it, they don't care.
That's so funny. I've watched plenty of videos on it and it just looks nuts when they open the gate and people just pour through that thing.
Yeah, and this was my first year, like you said. I ended up drawing a really good spot. So me, my dad, and brother went. I knew a couple other buddies of mine that were going and had gone in previous years. And then I just met a lot of cool people there. We're all there for the same goal, but you got to be friendly about it, obviously. And
Mhm.
especially once it's all done, you can go through and talk to people, see what kind of sheds they picked up, and it's a really good time.
That's awesome. How many sheds do you pick up there?
So for me, it was super slow, to be honest. I don't know if I just picked the wrong line, but I found three. They were all decent antlers, and
Mhm.
my brother found four. So he was in about the same boat. But then I had one buddy that picked up 10, and then another buddy picked up a 400-inch set. So it can vary a lot across the spectrum there. My
Mhm.
buddy Dylan with Fish Hunt YO, he was the one that picked up that 400, and
Yeah, I've
it
seen
was
that
just
one.
an insane find. I think the
Yeah,
biggest outset that came off of there that year.
that's awesome too. It's such a giant set and he's been getting so much heat for it too, huh?
So jealous. And on that note, I actually got a call the other day from a Jackson game warden. And he's like, yeah, we've been seeing these videos because obviously Dylan, we're posting about this, letting
Mhm.
people know, trying to share our experience.
Mhm.
And he said there's people reporting that I wasn't a resident. Even
Mhm.
though I'd called him, I had checked in twice, all
Mhm.
that stuff. And he checked with me again. He's like, yeah, you're good, man. People just like to call it in. I mean,
Yeah.
if it's a jealousy thing, if it's a just being on social media, it's a given, but
Mhm.
there's always the case, it seems to be.
Yeah, it seems to be picking up more and more too. Because I think even just recently I was watching the sheep heads that Chesser and Shed Crazy were picking up, and people were calling in on those too. And they had already cleared everything. Yeah, I don't know. People just making sure they're not doing what they're not supposed to be doing. I don't know. And a little bit jealousy factor, I'm sure.
I think it is. I saw the same videos about the sheep heads, and they made the point of quit wasting their time. They've gotten dozens of calls for those
Mhm.
guys about the sheep heads. But why would you not think about it? These guys aren't going to post a video for hundreds of thousands of people to see doing something illegal. If
Yeah.
they were wanting to do something illegal, you wouldn't be seeing it.
They're under such a microscope when it comes to the public eye to doing what they do, and they're good at it. That's just the thing. They're good at what they do, so people just get mad about that. It's
Exactly.
interesting to see. I love seeing people pick up stuff. I'm not gonna more like FOMO, like, man, I wish I was there. I'd be running through the hills too, picking up what I could and doing the same thing, wanting to see what everybody else gets, put your hands on other stuff. Even just being in that environment and putting your hands on a 400-inch set like that would be freaking awesome, even if I'm not the one picking it up.
Super cool. And like a 3 shed day is not a lot. For some people, it's good. For some people, it's a terrible day. For me, it
Mhm.
was all right. And I didn't care about the sheds that I found. I hiked all day. I was running around. There's hundreds of people out there. It was just a cool experience, regardless of what I found.
That seems like a really cool experience. How many people do you think were there?
I want to say right around 500.
Dang, that's quite a bit. I don't know if you know this. What are the numbers of elk that they have in that area, like prior to opening through that winter? Do you know?
Oof, that is a good
Since
question.
it just seems like there's so many sheds that come out of there.
Yeah, I don't know the exact number on that.
Mhm.
And we're only shed hunting the national forest side of it.
Mhm.
So there's bulls on
Mhm.
the actual refuge, which is what the Boy Scouts do. So
Mhm.
I would say there's arguably more bulls on that.
Mhm.
But I mean, there was well over 1,500 sheds picked up off of the forest.
That's awesome. With 500 people and that many sheds, there's plenty for everybody to run and grab. That's very interesting too, the way everybody does it. Some people going by horseback, some on foot, some in vehicles. Did you see any electric bikes or anything too?
So I saw a lot of interesting things on the point about the horses. A lot of guys were using horses, and that seemed to be the big ticket. If you've got them, that was the way to do it. And those guys were cleaning up. I went on foot, obviously, and I did actually see one guy on an e-bike who found a few, but then I was hearing some rumors that he actually might have had them confiscated from the Game and Fish
Uh,
because you're not allowed to have e-bikes in there, I guess. Yeah, so that one I wasn't sure what happened to him, but I was on foot and it was truly insane. I was one of the first vehicles into there. I hop out and go running up the hill, and next thing I know, I look back and there's like 60 people following. Oh, it was wild.
so you're sitting at the gate before this gate opens essentially. Can you see sheds from like where you're sitting, or you just gotta like, do you go up into the hills and there's trees and stuff and start looking?
There's a couple you could see, but not really. Out of those
Yeah.
1,500, you might be able to glass 10. I don't know.
Yeah.
But really, you're just going up there off a whim of where you think the bulls are going to be.
How funny. That seems really awesome. What number were you in the gate again?
My truck was spot 10 this year.
Wow. So you were way up front.
I
That's
was.
good.
I was in a great spot, but I was just clueless. Being my first year, I picked a
Yeah.
spot. I was wrong. I mean, to put it simply, I was really quick getting in there. I beat everybody, and there was just not a lot of antlers where I went.
Yeah, that's so funny. That's kind of the gist of it anyways. It's just all about walking the right line some days. Obviously putting yourself in the best place possible, but then sometimes it's just the line you take. I don't know if you've done it before, but I've walked past sheds on a line and then found them a different trip in on a different line or something.
Oh yeah, absolutely. That's happened a dozen times. And even at the refuge opener, I went running in. I picked up this set right off the bat and was super hyped up about that. And I looked to my left and somebody picks up two that were 20 yards away. I could have
Jeez.
easily seen them, and I just wasn't quite on that right line. And I was so focused on the other sheds. And so that guy had the perfect line into him.
That sounds like a fun little experience, just having a good time, picking up some sheds and everybody else around you is doing the same thing.
It's definitely different than your normal shed hunt. You're not just
Mhm.
cruising the stage with your buddies. It's a high paced environment, a lot of competition, but it's cool. I mean, to leave it at
Yeah.
that, it is a really cool experience.
You gotta train for that one with your feet.
Yes, sir.
If you're out trying to outrun a horse.
Thankfully, I beat one. That was what was kind of cool. I do a lot of shed hunting before that. So I was in really good shape for my personal standards and running up. I beat all the guys on foot. And right as I was clearing the top, there was a horse coming up behind me. And that's when I found the set. So I was
Yeah.
just super stoked to be able to grab that and didn't have the horse beat me to that one. But then shortly after, there's a dozen horses passing you.
Yeah, that's funny. That seems really cool. Like you said, it's a totally different ball game, a different experience, but does everybody just pick their own line and go off? And I'm assuming there's so many people there coming in and whatnot, but still, if I'm there and there's somebody 30 or 40 yards to the right of me, I'm probably still going to just stay on my own line essentially.
Absolutely. Yeah. Like 30 yards, you could miss one. So there was really no spreading out. You kind of pick 20, 30, 40 yards, however far apart you are, as long as you're not running into the other guy, that was good enough.
That's funny. So, since you've been taking shed hunting more serious the last several years, have you noticed a change in the way you do it? Have you developed your own ways to go about things, or any skills you've improved on since you started?
So I'd say the big one that I changed is how I glass, or the fact that I glass at all. Year one, I didn't glass. I'd bring the binos, but only if I spotted something that looked like a shed. Year two, I'd glass with the binos a little bit. And then these last 2 years, I bring a full tripod setup, glassing pad. A lot of times I'll bring a spotting scope and a digiscope, all of which I'm using every single trip.
Yeah, glassing's extremely important. Very underutilized, I'd say, as well, depending on where you're at for the most part.
Right. No, you're exactly right on that. There's certain places that it's just not going to help you. It's dead weight. But for most of my spots, I'm always bringing the glass, and it gives you a chance for a break. You're going to have to sit down eventually anyway. Why not make use of that time and turn up some sheds while you're sitting there eating lunch?
Absolutely. Definitely saves you some foot miles by just being able to look at a hillside. Yes, if you spot something that may take you into more, and if you don't spot something, that doesn't necessarily mean it's not there, but helps save you some time in the long run and go in the proper direction sometimes as well when it changes your whole trajectory. If you're thinking, I've gotten to the top of like glassing points and I'm like, okay, I want to get into this pocket, and then you're glassing around and you see a shed away from that area, and then you go in that direction and luck into more sheds or something like that.
And that's the thing people say about glassing. They're like, oh, well, I didn't glass a shed, so I'm just going to move on. It's not worth it. I'm not glassing them.
Mhm.
Well, I'm not just doing it to find a shed. I'm doing it to find a game trail, find a bed, even glass up the bowls themselves. All of
Mhm.
that is super important information where, like you said, I may switch up where I'm going. If I'm planning to go down the bottom of this draw and I glass over the next one, I'm seeing just this huge game trail going straight across it. Obviously, I'm switching up.
Yeah, I even glass up rubs and stuff when I'm looking on some of those hillsides. Do you find that with the old South Slope rule being one of the first places, or do you find them on other places as well?
I think it's a good starting point, but don't
Mhm.
take it as the gospel. It's not always going to be true, but if you've got an option between the two, sure, go on the south facer, but don't ride off a north slope just because that's what guys are saying.
Definitely. Yeah, definitely have found them all around the mountains for sure. Sometimes they just get bumped into the right places and they're not sticking out like a sore thumb on the sunny side. One of the other things that we wanted to chat with, or you kind of helped me get in that direction, was kind of the gear talk, which actually was a great point. So you've done your fair share of some backcountry packing in, and then also some run and gun setups out of the trucks, or whether it's day trips from a truck. What type of gear would you say is good, not good, the good, the bad, the uglies? Have you ever wasted some weight where you're like, didn't use that? Or sometimes we find out like we're in the backcountry and we're like, shoot, I was going to bring that and I totally needed it.
Yeah, so I keep track of my gear pretty well so I don't forget anything. That's the big one.
Hmm.
Is you don't want to forget anything. If you know your gear is going to be important, you want to bring what you need. So I've got the full list of that, and then I'll basically go through it based on the weather for that week, based on the terrain, based on how long I'm going to be in there. And so then I'll trim my pack down based on that, switch out certain things for other items. If the weather's going to be super clear, I'll leave the tent behind so that I can save weight there. And I'd say the biggest one is knowing your water. So if there's no water in there, obviously you're going to have to load up. You're going to have a heavy pack going in, but you know that ahead of time. And for most cases, there's going to be water in there. You just have to pinpoint it and you save yourselves like 15 pounds of weight. If you know where the
Hmm.
water's at, you bring a little water filter, like one of the Sawyers or something, and you get in there, spend 20 minutes, filtering up some water and you're good to go.
Yeah, with the springs and just paying attention to those on the
Yeah, no,
maps.
most of the time it's springs. If you can't find a spring, maybe you can find a pond or even a tank somewhere back there. There's some little
Mhm.
more unique water sources. But if you can just find something like that, you can cut your pack weight down by a ton. And that's been a big thing I focused on this last couple of years.
Yeah, I do tend to pack a lot of water around with me on the daily. Just out here in Arizona, it's a lot warmer, but that
Well,
would be a major weight saver for sure.
and I guess I'll transition with that to day trips. I don't worry about water on day trips. I bring it in my pack and I'm not
Mhm.
going to bring the filter. I'm not going to be trying to find my way to a spring. If I want to go somewhere for a day, I'm going to go there and not waste time going down to water because at that point, my pack's only 15 pounds. I can throw whatever
Mhm.
I want in there. If I want to bring extra snacks, extra water, random filming gear, none of it matters for a day hike because your pack's already light.
Agree with that one. Definitely switch up the way you pack your pack for sure, depending on the goal or the destination. With your overnighters, how much are you packing in there when it comes to food? Obviously, you're taking a little bit of water in, but not as much if you're going to rely on spring sources. And a bed setup. What kind of setup are you sleeping on when you're back in deep?
Yeah, so food wise, I've started tracking my calories a lot more going into this year because I want to have a good plan. I don't want to bring too little food. I don't want to bring too much food. And so I try to budget in that like 3,200 calorie range for each day. And if I can do that, I can also plan out each exact meal. I eat a pretty good breakfast, which a lot of guys say they skip breakfast in the backcountry, but not me. I'm bringing like 700 to 900 calories every day for breakfast. Eat that before leaving camp. And then for lunch, I'll either bring dry food, so sandwiches, granola, crackers, and leave the jet boil at camp, or I'll just bring a jet boil and one of the rice mixes or one of the mountain houses. And then going into dinner, that's my big one. I'll probably have 12 to 1,300 calories for dinner. And that's whatever I got left at camp. I don't have to worry about packing that weight around so I can have the biggest thing I want and
Mhm.
make sure that I'm fueled up going into the next day. And then after dinner, put all that stuff back away and figure out how I'm sleeping. I made the comment earlier about not bringing a tent, which I did. I would say, I think I did that 3 times this year, but it's less often than running a tent. Even if
Mhm.
there's a slight chance of rain, I'm going to bring the tent because I'd rather a little extra weight than be completely miserable sitting there wet. Almost always bring the tent. I've got a trekking pole tent, so I bring my trekking poles anyway. I might as well just bring a tent that makes use of that, and then I don't have the extra weight of tent poles. So I use that. It's the Durston, I think X Mid is what it is, and so that one's super light. Even when I'm bringing it, it's not a lot of extra weight. I use a Climate sleeping pad. It's pretty good size, but I prefer not to roll off of it in the middle of the night. So I take a little extra weight for comfort there, use
Mhm.
that one, and it's like 5 to 6 R value. So it's rated through winter, but I'll still use it in spring and summer just because of the comfort side of it. And my sleeping bag, I'm actually looking to upgrade. So I'm going to have to look into that some more. It's just some little 20-degree bag, mummy bag type deal. And I use a liner in that. So it drops it to maybe a 10 to 15-degree comfort range. And then the liner's super handy for if I ever have to clean it. After 4 days back there, it's gross. I want to just be
Mhm.
able to pull that liner, throw it in the washer, and then I'm good to go for my next trip.
Do you find yourself getting cold at all, or you feel like that setup's pretty good? I feel like with the pad underneath, you would definitely help getting colder with some of that, like losing that heat without that pad, you know?
Well, the pad is non-negotiable. Even if I'm leaving
Mhm.
the tent behind, the pad is always coming with me 100% of the time. And with that setup, so it's rated at 20 as their selling point on the bag. It's 20-degree bag. And
Mhm.
then it's a 5.4 R value pad and then a 10-degree liner. So with all that, theoretically, you could be 5 degrees. You could stay the night in, but I'm not going to do that. A listed rating, and there's what you're actually going to sleep comfortably in, which
Mhm.
for me is about 16 degrees. Anything below that, I'm going to have to switch something up, bring a stove, leave a fire out or something.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, it can definitely get pretty chilly at night too, for sure.
Oh man, yeah,
Nothing
that
worse than waking up freezing cold in the middle of the night.
and it's usually for me like 2 to 5 in the morning. If I wake up then, I'm probably not getting back to sleep. And
Mhm.
those have been the nights where it got below 16.
Mhm. Yeah, it's funny. My truck setup, I'll just run cot, a bed pad, and then I don't even know what it's rated, but it's just a really thick flannel lined sleeping bag. That's not one I carry. There'd be no way. It's way too much weight. But that right there, I feel like I wake up even in really cold temperatures, and even the 20s, I wake up and it's hot inside my sleeping bag. Like, gotta unzip it and open it up a little bit.
Right. No,
But
that's actually the same deal for the off chance that I am sleeping in the truck or staying in a wall tent type deal. Those
mhm.
big comfy flannel ones, those are great for stuff like that, but they also weigh like 20 pounds.
Yeah,
Not ideal
that's a
for your
full bedroll.
yeah, not ideal for your backpack trips, but those ones are super comfy. And it's just a matter of knowing yourself and knowing your gear. So for me,
Mhm.
that 20-degree with 10-degree liner, I know it gets me to 16 degrees. But somebody else, they might be comfortable down to 5. And then other guys
Mhm.
may be comfortable down to only 30 with that. So you just
Mhm.
have to know your gear and you have to know how you sleep.
That's such a good point. I feel a lot of guys want to test these new gear on. Obviously, that's the perfect place to test it, and then you find out if it works for you or not. But that's such a good time to test that gear, even during shed season or that little more mild weather, even when you're testing these things you want to use maybe later in the fall and being able to run them in the field and see how they do. I feel like I've had things before where I'm like, that was kind of a waste of weight, or I could do without that. Or with tripods, when you're cutting weight, every little bit counts, but trying to figure out what tripod's going to work best, is shaving weight or whatever is going to work. It's really a great time to test that stuff out for sure.
It is, and I encourage people to do both. So test it out in your backyard or at a local
Hmm.
park or something when it comes to pitching your tent or blowing up your sleeping pad, all that stuff. Figure that out before you go as a test run so you know how things are going to work. You know, they're still in working condition. If it was used before, you didn't poke a hole in the pad and your tent's still stretching out and pitching right. But then also shed season's a good next level to that. It's not going to be as cold as your late archery hunts or your big rifle season stuff. And you're able to get out maybe on less important trips for people. A lot of guys are bigger hunters than they are shed hunters. So if you want to go try it out on a little shed hunt and you have to come home early, it's okay. But if it's a once in a lifetime tag, you got to know that your gear is going to perform how you want it to.
You want it to perform. You don't want it to take away from your mission for. taking out one of those tags for sure.
Yeah, no way.
That's a great point. So, with all your shed hunting and even your background that you're building right now with school in entrepreneur and marketing, what plans do you have in the future for yourself? Are you setting goals that you'd like to accomplish, or just working with Shed Pursuit and seeing where you can get from there?
Yeah, I'm not dead set on anything. By doing all three of those, I'm keeping my options open. I could go into some random marketing job if I wanted to. I could work in
Hmm.
the hunting industry, still do the bow tech type deal, or I could transition to full time shed pursuit.
Hmm.
But I honestly am not sure yet. I
Hmm.
enjoy the way I've got it balanced right now. I can make a little money from the bow shop and then put that towards fuel into shed pursuit
Hmm.
and spend a lot of time outdoors that way. I'm able to make an impact on the industry, get to know a lot of people like yourself and like other shed hunters. I've made some really good friends through social media. There's obviously the negativity we talked about earlier of jealous people on social media, but that's been completely overshadowed by how many cool people and how many friends I've met through social media. And that's been probably the coolest thing for me.
Definitely. That's what I like about this whole thing, just the community and shed hunting as well. The support's definitely there. There's always going to be somebody saying something about somebody, no matter what that is, but the good definitely outweighs the bad when it comes to that. It's always someone just complaining because they're not happy with what they're doing, but we kind of look past that, which is the all the positive comments outweigh that for sure. And
Yeah.
then with the other thing, you're so young, it's good to fill that out anyways. I think that's the perfect idea going into it is just we'll see where it goes and you're just learning all the different avenues and making a good name for yourself and all that stuff. So that definitely is a good way to go about it.
And I hope so. I get a little worried once in a while thinking that I don't have it all planned out and things aren't going to work out how I think they are. But honestly, I've kind of got to sit back and realize that I'm in a decent spot. I'm doing what I enjoy doing, and I'm going to keep doing that till I figure out a dead set plan.
That's awesome. We could probably wrap it up here. That's a good spot to start rounding it out. So let everybody know where they can follow along with you and see all your shed hunting journey and all that.
Yeah, so I'm super active on both Instagram and TikTok under Shed Pursuit there. And I will be doing a lot of YouTube over the summer. I haven't done it in the past, but I've decided I'm going to jump into a lot of gear videos through the summer. And then I'm going to
Mhm.
be filming hunts in the fall. And the last thing, I've got my website, shedpursuit.com. I'll be selling hats and shirts on there. And if I do make a product in the future, that's where you'll find it.
Awesome. Man, I appreciate you coming on and chatting with us, leaving us little bits of good information when it comes to shed hunting and that gear stuff. I look forward to seeing what you got. And with the YouTube as well, definitely a good avenue to spread your stuff even further. And just the gear reviews, I feel like are so good. I watch a lot of them just to see how it's working for people that are doing the same things I'm doing. It's just an easy way to look at it like, hey, I'm going to put some serious wear and tear on some of these things. And I want to see how somebody else who's at that same capacity is putting it to the test. So that's pretty good. I'll be looking forward to some of those videos you put out.
Right, and that's what I thought about going into the gear videos is that if people are going to spend a lot of money, because obviously gear is expensive nowadays, I'd like to share my thoughts on it as I've
Hmm.
spent, shoot, I think this shed season I've spent 42 days looking and I spent over 50 days hunting last year. So I'm consistently in the field. I'm trying new gear. I'm swapping things out, and I might as well share that with people and give the
Hmm.
good, the bad, and the ugly.
How did your 25 season shake out so far? How many sheds have you picked up?
So I'm sitting right around 120 right now. So it's
That's
been decent, but not great. Given the
mhm,
amount of days and the miles, I think I should be higher, but I still can't complain about 120 sheds. I
that's a
was,
lot of
yeah, it's good. And I seriously can't complain. I've got some cool ones. I've got some sweet deadheads I picked up, and I was shooting for 200. I still
mhm,
might find it. I've got about the next week and a half of consistently looking. And then I usually find a few through the summer scouting and then quite a few into hunting season. So
mhm.
maybe I'll make that 200 mark, but it has been a really good season.
That's awesome. I'll be looking forward to that, seeing what else you pick up, and we'll go from there, man. I appreciate it.
Yeah. Thank you, man. Thanks for having me
Yeah.
on.
Yeah, thanks again, and thanks everybody for listening.